We did consent of agenda.
I think that was when I was walking up.
That counts, yeah, okay. Do we need to do roll call again or no?
When I was walking.
On the portal, all right. Do we need to do roll call again or no?
When I was walking.
On the portal, all right. Totally. Do we need to do roll call again? Not again. Or one more. Breeze a chime.
Okay, sorry.
Originally, or like when I was moved here. So my parents are from Miami and Orlando. And no, I was raised here from 3 years old. A little before. 3. I think it was 3. I was brought here at 3, so I don't really know much different.
Right.
I've lived other places for short periods of time. Just due to schooling and things like that. Skiing as well.
Got back from our walk around. We did modify the agenda just to change the order. So, first, we can go ahead and do another roll call real quick. And then if you want to jump to the consent and open forum.
Okay. Gonna do roll call. Parks Thompson,
Tiffany Gatesman.
Nick Crab.
online.
Steve Fitzgerald here online.
Welcome, Steve. All right.
Barry. Roll call again.
Barry Young.
Is Abby on?
I do a motion.
Can we make a motion to approve the consent agenda? The minutes?
A second.
I move that we accept the consent agenda.
Oh, I second now.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
I think we have the open forum. Is there anybody that would like to discuss anything? I don't think we have anybody that wants to discuss anything. All right, we're moving on. So we went ahead and we did a walkabout, which was nice. We missed you there, Steve. You would have been helpful. I think we're moving on to possible district enhancements. Was that about the walkabout? Are we gonna move on to that?
Sure did that on the walkabout, but I will recap here.
I think it'd be good.
For the recording and for.
Yeah.
The. But we had talked at our last meeting about funding one of the selfie stands somewhere in the downtown area. And then possibly some signage by the train station there. I can pull up real quick that kinetic sculpture. Oh. Okay, give me a second. All right, sorry, folks. I'm not actually in the meeting. I clicked on the wrong thing. So we kind of walked around, we looked at the train station area. I think everybody agrees it'd be a great area to kind of enhance for visibility for people coming on the train, both for those getting off in Fraser, as well as those that are passing through, just to kind of notice Fraser and maybe come back and visit us sometime. So are looking at something in that area. John, I did kind of float some ideas with him and ask if he had any thoughts. We've gone back and forth over some sort of wayfinding kiosk with information versus something more kind of aesthetically pleasing and just kind of like, hey, you're in Fraser. So as a very initial design, this is something that he sent me just yesterday towards the end of the day. He liked the idea of these international kind of symbols for different activities you can do, and some of the different things that Fraser is known for. I know we talked about something representing like art and some other stuff. But if the DDA is interested, we can have him come to our next meeting and get more formal kind of feedback. And we can better investigate kind of locations there by the train station and look at possibly moving forward with something like this.
I think that it would be good to have John come before the DDA and talk about his vision.
Mhm.
That's what I was saying, that he
Yeah.
would come into our July
I think
meeting.
we should do that.
Okay.
Yeah, I would also suggest though that rather than just picking somebody without letting the sort of broader artistic community know about this, probably isn't our best strategy. And it certainly wouldn't preclude us from meeting with John, but there's, ample opportunity for us to put what's generally known as a call for entries out,
Yep.
describe what we're looking for, and just see what other ideas might come forward. Doesn't stop us from using John, et cetera. So that would be one suggestion, and the Public Arts Committee can certainly help with that. And two, the Mural Festival is coming up, and what typically happens is each of the 30 murals, is sold at public auction. We have had occasions in the past where some went unsold, or went for barely anything. And the DDA could choose to purchase one of those for several $100s, and then have the town of Fraser and the DDA logos added to them and turn it into a selfie opportunity as well. So just two things that I didn't know if you guys had contemplated in the last meeting.
Yeah, Steve, something else that came up on our walk around, Tiffany mentioned, that, Mural Park, we call it Mural Park, and I know that's where initially all the murals were, but there are no kind of permanent murals there, or temporary revolving murals. If it would make sense to look at either on the surrounding buildings, kind of having murals commissioned there, or what that might look like.
There's a 3-story mural from the Mural Festival on the Bison building right there. And the challenge would have with the current murals from the Mural Festival is they wouldn't last 6 months in the Mural Park because they're wood, and the sun and weather would both warp and distort them pretty quickly. So if we're gonna do a mural in that park, we'll need to do a more permanent base for it, which is something that certainly could be done, but sort of beyond the scope of the Mural Festival. Now, one of the things that happens with each Mural Festival is the grand prize winner is given a commission by the town to paint a new mural. That's where the bison came from. This year, it's going to go on the Camber wall. But there's nothing to stop us from asking the Public Arts Committee to designate a new place if we were to put a wall or something in, like the mural park.
Well, and I think Kevin seemed open to, he's got another wall right there. He was out walking around with us, Kevin Rifkin. If we wanted to do another mural on another wall of their building. I don't know if Ron Anderson or the distillery would be interested on their building. So those are kind of some prominent walls.
We are actually thinking about that. We have an idea in mind, so I can tell you what we're thinking.
Okay.
Yeah, and again, there's nothing to stop us from just commissioning a mural artist to go do it.
Yeah.
What, and this is probably not good, you guys might know a little bit more, but what about a mural on the concrete? I don't know if it would last with foot traffic. I don't know if there's something you can put over on top of it so it would last a little bit longer, but that would be cool and unique.
Yeah, Steve, do you know, is there any way to do something like that that would last? And maybe it's okay if it doesn't last, if we just keep redoing it. I know I've seen and I've thought about for Fraser, and I imagine on Highway 40 you would need to involve CDOT. And it would be too involved and probably not approved, but spots by school where they do these like murals in the intersection, and it's supposed to help slow down traffic. I don't know if it's helpful if you're looking at the mural and kids are crossing, but you're going slower. And then I have found that on the asphalt, they don't last, the ones I've seen. But it's just like a street intersection, so it just kind of fades the time, it doesn't matter, but.
Yeah, I mean, I seen that before? Yes. I do think that that would be the mural park concrete is not a terrible surface for that. I don't know enough about what sort of paint and duration that something would last, but again, certainly something we could explore. And one of the cool things is we're going to have, the Public Art Committee does a call for entries for mural artists every year. We typically get 70 to 80 who apply. We have all their contact information from the last 5 years. Plus, we'll have 30 of them in town. So if that's something we wanted to explore, we could put that information out to that community. And I'm willing to bet you that those folks know exactly what sort of specifications we'd have to meet.
Steve, do you guys do calls for entries for the other sculptures around town?
We did. We did, with the exception of the one that John just placed was a replacement for one that he had, and we allowed Sarah Wick just arranged all that.
Okay.
But we generally try and do a call for entry for just about anything that we're going to pay people for, just out of a sense of fairness.
No, and I wondered about that, because obviously we have a lot of sculptures around town and.
Yeah. It's been 2 years since we did that, or actually 3 since we did that call, and we'll probably be doing another one next year. But don't be intimidated by that, folks. That's not hard. The town has a license for this tool that we can put that information out there, and my guess is we would have all kinds of interest, depending on what we want to do.
Okay. Well, maybe I will try to do some more investigation around that juniper patch and the fire hydrant, what that might look like. And then if it seems like something you can move forward with. Do you generally put a price range in your calls for entries?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. One of the other things that I've seen in a number of communities is, and I actually don't know how many fire hydrants we have, but communities, much like our ski bench painting program or the snowplow blade painting, they put a call out for artists to paint the fire hydrants. And they tend to be very whimsical and cute. So that's another simple thing we could do. And probably would not, I mean, you could probably get most artists to do that for a couple $100.
They do that for electrical boxes too, right, Steve?
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yep.
think it's super cool, better than just an electrical box.
Yeah, I like those.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's a way of turning what are otherwise utilitarian things into something fun. And it kind of fits the funky Fraser idea. So those are all possible.
I do want to make sure we give Cushing Carol enough time. One last question for you. Is the TDA interested then in possibly pursuing some of these musical instruments if we look at those for Mural Park?
Yep.
Way to try to activate that space and yeah, okay, great. So we'll look at both of those moving forward with that. All right. We do have Nora and Art and Anna Ray with us from Cushing Terrell. They've been moving forward with the town comprehensive plan and wanted to present to you all and get feedback on their downtown vision. in the currently stand for downtown development. Thank you.
Thanks, Sarah. Hi, everyone. Good morning. Going to share my screen here with a presentation. Looks like that came up. Thanks for having us. We're excited about how this plan has been developing. So hopefully after you're walking toward this morning, some ideas are fresh in your minds. So mostly today we'll be giving you an update on how the plan has evolved since our last meeting with you all, and then walk through our vision and goals that we've developed in a draft phase. So this is where we are in our engagement schedule. We actually have the board retreat next week where we'll be presenting this information to the Board of Trustees. And then just so you know, our next open house event will be on July 30th at the Rec Center, and we'll be doing a pop-up on the 29th at the summer concert to let folks know that they should come to the open house the next day. These are just some photos from the open house, and then I'm going to pass it over to Art to present the next few slides since he was at the open house and I was not.
Readings. Thanks, Nora. Yep, so it's been quite a while since we chatted last. And before we kind of hand it back to Nora to talk a little bit more detail about vision and goals, there are kind of four main pieces I wanted to talk about relating to the vision plan. The first one is just a little bit of a refresher talking about the plan purpose. Next piece, talk about what we presented at that open house, 2 different boards that we'll show here. Highlight some of the changes in the plan since we last talked, and then kind of provide a little bit of a recap of what we heard at the open house relating to the downtown plan. So in terms of the purpose of the plan, you know, this is a visionary piece that's intended to be something that facilitates discussion, informs decision making, is proactive about addressing change, and ultimately integrating what citizens and residents in the community want. What we presented at the open house, we included 2 boards. The first one we're looking at right here that showed a context map where that's located, enlargement of the plan. We'll get into that a little bit more detail in a moment. And some of the kind of key diagrams that kind of begin to break down the plan a little bit more, talking about, you know, where pedestrians, cyclists move throughout the area, where vehicles move through, some of the public open spaces we're envisioning, wayfinding elements, parking, and ground floor activation, all those good things. So I think it provided a nice reference as we're talking to people about, you know, trying to understand where parking and stuff is and other elements of the plan. So on the second board, we got into a little bit more detail, you know, identifying some of those items on there and also showing some character imagery of, you know, what maybe some of these spaces might look like. You know, it's not necessarily saying that it's going to be exactly this or exactly that, but it's providing a little bit more description of that. So it also kind of highlighted the kind of the big idea and how the downtown vision is organized, with in the upper right hand corner showing kind of the existing circulation system working through downtown, and then kind of building and improving upon that to essentially connect 40 to the river and the river to 40 through a series of memorable spaces and places throughout that area that creates a rich downtown environment. So there's a couple key moves that, you know, help facilitate this. The main one kind of running through the middle of the downtown, connecting Eisenhower on the west side and the river on the east side, envisioning a public community space that's fronted by ground floor retail and commercial and public spaces that really provides a memorable space to kind of connect those 2 pieces. And then kind of to the north and south of those, 2 other secondary connections that allow people to kind of have access down to the river and vice versa. So maybe go to the next one there, Nora. Yep, now you can hopefully see that a little bit clearer now, zooming in a little bit. But kind kind of quickly running through some of the changes since we last met. We improved that link from Highway 40 down to the river, creating more activation along the riverfront as well through, a series of public spaces, one kind of engaging directly adjacent to the river. Maybe there's a seating area, place for people to kind of gather, get your feet wet along the river there. And then also maybe there's a little bit of an area for retail establishments, utilizing the first level of that area to eat and dine and drink and all the good things there to kind of sit adjacent to the river. We did expand some of the streetscape improvements going down towards the railroad tracks to the west there to provide kind of some breadcrumbs to get folks from the railroad state or not the railroad station, the depot there down to downtown through enhanced parking, sidewalks, street trees, etc., to kind of supplement the other side of Highway 40. This plan also showed the proposed CDOT improvements as well along 40. We did modify some of the connections going to the north and the south, going from Safeway over there on Meadow Ridge, and then to the north over there by Sun River Drive, which is maybe a little less obvious, over by the distillery. And then we did show some additional proposed development or planned development that's occurring in the downtown area right now. Yes, those two buildings right there. So that's kind of a quick overview of some of the plan updates. Maybe move into what we heard a little bit from the community on the next slide. So overall, I feel like it was really well received, and really appreciate the kind and friendly Fraser folks coming to visit. A lot of positive attitudes in that engagement event. People liked the improved pedestrian and road connections and the integration of additional community spaces in the downtown. Also liked how the river was activated a little bit more. Some concerns that I heard also were, probably the largest one might have been about how the CDOT plans might affect people kind of crossing along 40, since there's a little bit uncertainty around that, mainly for pedestrians and stuff, just making sure that it's going to be safe. Another comment around that was making sure that whatever's modified along 40, making sure that it doesn't create a kind of a log jam for seasonal visitors coming along 40, more so than it does right now. Second comment was probably about parking. Is there going to be enough parking? One item that's kind of highlighted in those other diagrams we showed where some of those areas for parking were included, and really it's trying to hide parking or disguise it as much as we can while still providing it, not excluding it. So the idea here is that we've got tuck under parking. We utilize street parking to our best ability, and try to avoid large surface lots the best that we can, since there's a little bit of a trade-off sometimes between integrating additional community space in there versus providing a large amount of parking. And it seemed like through that dialogue with folks, that was appreciated, since the community space is something that's of high value. So additionally, folks want to make sure that the downtown is local and not totally tourist driven. And I think those are the main concerns really, but I would say folks seem to be happy with it, and didn't see necessarily a huge amount of concern other than what I mentioned there. So
Thanks, Art.
Do we want to pause there or do we want to keep cruising through, Nora?
Yeah, actually, Sarah, do you have thoughts on whether you'd like to pause here before we get into vision and goals or board?
Yeah, maybe if you could just go back to the graphic of the updated vision plan. I don't know if you can zoom in on that a little bit. Yeah. Any thoughts or feedback, comments on this guy before we move forward?
Is that red part just walkability? That's not road or anything like that? Okay.
Like a Pearl Street type of vibe, right?
Yeah,
Cool.
essentially kind of an area for pedestrian focused areas. You know, there's a couple crossing areas there on Clayton Court and then there on Highway 40 as well.
So while we're looking at that space, one of the things that we've been thinking about with the Art Center is that it would be nice to have a small outdoor space so that when we have the opportunity, we can draw people down to this area, like at lunchtime to see, you know, if we have a traveling Japanese drum corps, we would do a 20-minute lunchtime performance where people could bring their brown bag or buy something at preferably one of the establishments nearby and come out and see that. We wouldn't want to compete with the music in the parks and that sort of thing at night. So this is not intended to be a moneymaker or a ticket selling thing. It's more intended to be a way to bolster the local business community. And so I'm curious if that area that I see that's grassy around G or those steps up around C, if any of them were contemplated for that or are conducive to that.
Yeah, I would say on around C, I was thinking that could be maybe a small area that kind of steps down to the river. We might have a small little gathering. And then also kind of in between C and G there, I think there's a little bit more open kind of plaza area that could be programmed. Those little square things you're seeing there are just 10 by 10 tents. So that space, I think, is probably maybe a little bit on the larger size. I don't know how many individuals, Steve, you're thinking that might be.
So those little tiny squares are 10 by 10s?
Yeah.
All right, that just gives me a sense of the area because, you know, eventually would like to move the Alpine Art Affair here, you know, and again, try and bolster the local business community. But all right, that at least helps me get a picture in my head.
Mm-hmm.
Any other thoughts, questions, feedback? Otherwise, I'll let them keep going. All right, go for it.
Great. Thanks, Sarah.
Thank you.
So this these vision and goals, they're not meant to be exactly what your plan of development has, but they're meant to complement them. So just keep that in mind as we walk through them here. But the draft vision statement for downtown Fraser is to create a vibrant and inviting downtown that embodies the individuality of Fraser through thriving businesses, lively community spaces, walkable destinations, and local character. And then we've got goals and then strategies, which nest under the goals, and then kind of action steps that nest under each strategy. So our first goal is to create an environment where walking, biking, and rolling feels fun, easy, and accessible. First strategy under this goal is improve signage and wayfinding for easier navigation. So like you were mentioning earlier, artistic monuments, local artists, working with Winter Park and other regional partners to identify signage and wayfinding deficiencies, and then really at some point working towards a signage and wayfinding plan. Second strategy is to improve pedestrian and vehicular safety. So safety on Highway 40, integrate safety best practices into the design of future roads and pathways, incorporating crime prevention through environmental design, adding sidewalks to existing and proposed roadways that are ADA accessible, inventory the current deficiencies and projected replacement timelines for pedestrian infrastructure in the capital improvement plan, widen the Fraser River Trail to separate cyclists from pedestrians, and then in high speed or high traffic areas, consider grade separated crossings. Third strategy is expand and improve mobility options. So looking at a P3 for a shared use parking lot or garage in downtown Fraser, working with the railroad to create additional parking on the east side of the tracks, as we've shown in the vision plan, improving roadways or getting additional parallel parking on Highway 40, installing public EV charging stations, conducting a parking analysis and or parking master plan, acquire property and budget to make roadway connections to the Safeway and Sun River Drive, work with the LIFT to improve bus service, support CDOT, the CDOT Colorado Mountain Rail Plan, and create an affordable and seasonal on-demand e-bike share system. Next strategy is allocate and design space that's friendly to walk, bike, and roll. So update the code for the Riverwalk District to secure 12-foot sidewalks when buildings face roadways, to allow for more street trees and site furnishings. And then design streets using best practices that are naturally safe for cyclists. Goal 2 is build a lively and sustainable business environment that supports small local shops and businesses, reflecting the town's unique and fun spirit. Strategy here is to promote business diversity, local businesses and entrepreneurs that is appealing to locals and visitors. So providing incentives to desired businesses, providing incubator spaces, create marketing collateral, and then just investing in public infrastructure. Next strategy is to increase foot traffic and visitation, so enhance marketing and advertising campaign through various media outlets. Provide inclusive housing that prioritizes Fraser's workforce, so continue to assess the Riverwalk District and housing requirements and adjust as needed. Continue to explore ways to integrate affordable and market rate housing for employees, and then work with the partnership on additional affordable residential projects. Fourth strategy under this goal is to create a full day Fraser visitor experience. So encourage traditional lodging types beyond short-term rentals to diversify visitation options. Encourage non-competing local businesses to partner with each other, and then encourage future development to work towards a full day visitor experience and make it an easier choice for weekend and time constrained visitors. Goal 3 is to make the Fraser River and River Trail the heart of downtown, shaping the area's identity and offering a vibrant and scenic space for residents and visitors to enjoy. Strategy is to enhance the River Trail amenities and gathering spaces near downtown. So to do that, acquire areas intended for parks and open space to make sure that the vision is realized, and then securing public areas, developing detailed public space designs that work with adjacent development parcels, and enhance development. And then second strategy, encourage active uses and programming along the river while respecting ecologically sensitive areas. So evaluate the ecological conditions and functions and provide best practice solutions. Evaluate construction constraints such as wetlands and challenging geotechnical conditions. And then again, continue to evaluate the Riverwalk District as projects are built and make changes as needed. Third strategy, improve non-motorized access and visibility from Highway 40 and Clayton Court to the river. So integrating wayfinding signage, creating stronger physical connections through wider sidewalks and plazas, and then create a memorable landmark or trailhead at the junction of the Fraser River Trail and downtown. Goal 4 is enhance downtown to be the go-to destination, buzzing with excitement and events every month of the year where there's always something fun for everyone. So strategy is to enhance event and programming efforts. So meeting with municipal partners to discuss kind of more valley-wide events and programming, and then enhance four-season programming and event planning, exploring the idea of larger events that don't conflict with adjacent communities. And then the second strategy is ensure high quality architectural and public realm design that's memorable and unique. So working with the community to plan public realm spaces, hiring local artists, and then allocating budget to maintain a clean and enjoyable public realm, and working with the DDA board. I think that's it for our 4 goals, and then the associated strategies and actions. So I'm happy to jump back to any if we want to focus in on any in particular, or if there's just general feedback, happy to discuss.
Could discuss goal 4. That's all right.
Sure.
It says making the downtown the go-to destination, buzzing with excitement and events for every month of the year. Now, does that mean Clayton Court as the downtown focused area? Is that what you're looking at?
I think it's more within the DDA boundaries.
Because I know right now the development of the downtown over by Clayton Court area is being developed to be probably the most beautiful area in Fraser in my mind. And that will slowly exclude the Safeway side and the Murdoch side. And I think that there needs to be some emphasis on that. Now, I know one of them is a big shopping center and we'd have to get Craig involved over there and Omar. But I think it would probably be wise to get them in the conversation sooner than earlier than later.
Yeah, and I'll say the DDA boundary specifically, was larger. Like we talked about just doing this area where we see the most kind of immediate short-term development. I wouldn't even say short-term. I mean, a lot of it's still long-term. But we did opt to go with a larger DDA boundary to include those other areas in the hope that there would be, I don't even know what the right word is. It's not quite redevelopment, but enhancements in those areas as well, right? That those businesses would be brought along and would thrive from any development that happened over here in Fraser. The Board of Trustees also opted to include that Lions Pond area because we're really seeing that Lions Pond area as the front door of Fraser and an area that stands to be enhanced with recreational amenities. So the bike park is part of that. We've talked about outdoor and amphitheater event space. I met with Tiffany yesterday and actually talked about just different ideas for enhancing access to the river. And kind of improving that as a recreational amenity while still making sure we're protecting the health of the river. So the Cushing Tyrrell is part of their scope. It's an overall town comprehensive plan, and so that actually expands beyond the boundaries of the town to some extent as well. But then they were also tasked kind of specifically with visioning for this river walk area that is kind of being focused on for development. But I know I very much sold the bike park as an economic driver, hopefully as well, getting people to come hang out in that Lions Pond area, recreate, and then grab their coffee at the roastery or their beer at Vicious Cycle right across the street.
Yeah, sure. The amphitheater, I think, is a huge draw because right now, currently, I know there was talks of not competing with Winter Park, but because of how much I guess population overload there is in Winter Park, especially during events like Jazz Fest or whatever, there will be no competition. They need places to go. People will be overwhelmed and want to come to another music venue on the same day. It happens to our locals. We go up there and we say, I'm good. I wanna go back down to Fraser right now. And I think that that's a huge asset that we have that Cushing and Terrell could probably help us develop because it's also a driver for revenue. Winter Park makes who knows how much millions of dollars every year on tickets to events through chamber and all that. Whereas, the bike park's not going to do that. That's going to be a free amenity. And having an amphitheater develop sooner and later is going to be something that drives actual revenue to help us get all this done. Whether we want a river, park waiting area, surf wave, whatever. Something that Winter Park can't have. They're not going to be able to have that.
Yeah.
But they are going to send us a lot of their population soon.
I have another comment. Just going off of some of our discussions from our walkabout and then also about the Murdoch's Shopping Center. So we were just kind of discussing on how Estes is super packed, but they have parking far away from town, but they have nice walkways to the downtown. The Murdoch's Shopping Center, depending on what the owner, maybe you have a communication discussion with the owner, but that is a huge parking resource. And there's also possibly Cushing Terrell could help us with formulating some or making some beautiful walkability from Murdoch Shopping Center to down to the Clayton Court area.
And to just add to that, Elk Creek is right there, and it's highly underused as a visual stimulant. We're focused very much on this river walk. The backside of that Murdoch Shopping Center is going to change eventually, where, I know the roastery has a big patio outside, and I know it's really the only one out back, and we can get away with that because of the view to Byers and Elk Creek is right there. That is, I think, going to be developed back there along Elk Creek. And so the backside of that is going to be visibly blight soon. A lot of that is going to become blight, otherwise developed and used much like a very mini version of this river walk. And it could be connectivity back there would be less traffic for vehicles. So it would actually be a very good way to connect both sides of the town and the DDA for walkability.
Are there current plans or drawings for developing that area?
Well,
Clark submitted anything?
the issue is that is not our territory. Because he excluded his properties, all of his properties in Fraser out of the DDA, so we cannot.
It's still Fraser. This is Fraser.
So the board will have to present that. Well, we could ask for
Yeah.
those from the
I'm just
actual board.
wondering,
Yeah.
Has,
Yeah, I know he's
Grand Park
submitted, he's at
presented it.
various stages of submission
Yeah.
for offhand, I can tell you.
is he planning like retail and mixed use back there?
What, I'm sorry.
I believe so.
He's planning retail and mixed use?
Not 100% sure. I know that there's housing going in, but yeah, but the retail on that side, and the patio ability is
Yeah.
huge on the backside. It's massive from around Murdoch's, and it's just not developed yet. So we do need to get Craig involved. But Cushing and Terrell, if they look at Elk Creek and they look at the ability to put sidewalks back there, that sort of thing, I think the town that would be huge because there's bus stops, there's, everything's right there. It is the doorway to Fraser or the gateway to Fraser, as you say, that whole side, that whole front areas. There should be paths connecting all the way through on both sides of the town, all the way back to the Amtrak. And it would be a beautiful walk too, from the back side of the Murdochs to the front side of Amtrak here.
And that'll really force Clark's development to walk to downtown for all that.
Correct. So then, because we're not getting tax dollars from him there, we could get it the other way, which
Um,
is the draw.
All plan development unit, but, some level of plans have been submitted for most of that, and I can look and see what we have.
Okay, cool. Just something to add to goal 4 here. I would like that to be looked at as well, because we're just so focused on this, and it is immediate, and we should be, and it's going to be beautiful.
One thing, I guess related to your initial comment about parking, that I didn't mention with the updated plan was there was the idea of along Railroad Avenue to create an area for parking adjacent to the railroad over there. I know there's some maybe hurdles that need to be jumped over to get to that, but the idea there would be that there's kind of a more regional or district-wide parking strategy where folks can have an easy place to park over there, and then those roadway improvements provide you, you know, those breadcrumbs, so to say, with, sidewalks, street trees that lead you over to kind of the center of the downtown across 40. But I do like what you're saying about Murdoch's, and if there's even a more expanded way to think about district parking over there, I think that could be interesting. And if you're connecting into other roadways or other ways for pedestrians and cyclists to kind of get you in and around town, that would be great.
There's a lot of, good places to visit for shops and everything like that, and Murdoch's and things opening. It'd
Mhm.
also be nice to not take those guys out of the opportunity for the tourists.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I can't remember if we talked about this at our last meeting or not, but Murdoch did apply for and got a business enhancement grant to enclose their dumpsters, because right now there's a ton of dumpsters. There's all kind of along the backside.
Yeah.
So they are looking to enclose those and have trash pick up more often so that they don't need as many of them. So I think that'll be a nice little improvement along the backside of the building there.
They are actually looking at just moving all of them. And I think they applied for 38 grand, right?
That was the total cost, and they applied for half of that.
Yeah, we should talk about that in the future because I have information about that. But I do think that those pathways back there from the back side of Murdoch's all the way to the front side of Amtrak would be huge for biking. So along the highway here, and the river walk is going to be so flooded with people. It is hard. Like if you walk from, let's say in Winter Park, you walk from Winter Park to Winter Park Resort on the river trail, they've now had to go in and widen that because there's too many accidents with longboarders and biking and, people stretching all the way across that. It's just not wide enough. I ran into that yesterday, actually, just kind of biking down through there, that you almost hit people and you're going pretty slow. But that would make an easy bike path along the back to connect and kind of get them off of the river trail some, because right now that's you come around the corner on your bike and you're running into somebody or their dog. And so that could just be a really great way to kind of move different types of, just have different mobility. And it's a little longer too, versus just like a straight cut down the highway or just over there. So it does add, for the people that do want to kind of bike around, a little sightseeing and scenic time on their bike, but it's only a couple minutes extra.
Yeah. that could be-
Even incorporate some of those roads and just have, like painted side lines or painted bikes on the road to say like bikes this way, this way.
Yeah, like a bike, bike
Yeah,
path or
like a
greenway or whatever.
Yeah.
I think that would be really cool. We need that here.
Right. Any other feedback for the plan? Well, thank you, Nora and our
Yeah, thank you for all the feedback. We appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks again.
That's where you're gonna wanna do it. You're not gonna wanna have this clogging up these. That'd be terrible. You want them, if they can get to that, just kind of get out and around places. Yeah, sure. All right, can we move to reschedule the DDA events?
Yeah, so we were looking at a happy hour, people had talked about trash pickup, potentially combining them, I apologize, the spring date fell through, and then I only found dates for a couple people that it worked for kind of the same day in June. The date we were looking at, the Chamber's having an event, it seems like it would make sense to try not to compete with the Chamber. Particularly if we're trying to get business owners and whatnot to participate. I think summer is just sometimes a really hard time to schedule anything with everybody in and out, and I know my June is really stacked, so I am looking at stuff later in the summer unless there's really an impetus to try to do something sooner. We wanted to kind of throw out the first week in August. Then we can maybe try to do something else sometime in the fall, later in the fall, before you get into like the holiday season.
What weekend is mural?
Mural Fest is that first weekend in August.
Do you think maybe right before it?
I had the thought that if we did it the week after in terms of trash pickup, it could kind of be in between Mural Fest and Revel in the Park.
Okay.
And that might make sense. And honestly, that week just works with my personal schedule. But wanted to see what people thought. I know Thursday was thrown out. The one day I can't do is Wednesday because we have a board meeting. So we'd be looking at that week of the 4th through the day. Kind of do a late afternoon trash pickup.
So
happy hour.
Mural Fest is second and third, is that right?
Yes.
So the 8th would potentially be pretty good because it wouldn't be Saturday.
I would probably not look at Friday. Just because again, I feel like people are in and out and that Revel in the Park will be going on starting then, but if we wanted to do something during the week.
Okay, so Wednesday, Thursday.
Projection.
I think Wednesdays, Thursdays are kind of leading to the weekend. You know, people are kind of ready to do something. So if we did it after, after work at like 4:30-ish or something, we could meet maybe at Camber or something and go from there.
On Thursday. That'd work.
Kind of bring people there and in there.
At a Vicious, or Beer Co. or whatever, yeah.
Yeah, kind of move through.
Yeah, meeting souls have suggested around kind of Safeway area. We can kind of see between now and then. I mean, if we were trying to do cleanup after Mural Park, I think it would make sense to do it more down here. But yeah, do like an hour, invite people to participate or not, and then an hour at brewery and
Sure.
Yeah.
Or like a point A to point B type of deal. Start somewhere, end somewhere.
so I heard Thursday.
Thursday the 7th, would that be?
We'll look at where it makes sense between now and then.
I would recommend just probably not Camber for the first one.
Right.
Just to be fair. So
Yeah, and that's what we had originally talked about, just to use, I mean, we did Simple and maybe Vicious businesses that don't have to pay numbers, to try to get them some business as well.
Yeah.
Bring them into DDA activities a bit,
Okay.
and then as we go, we could hit it.
Yeah, that's just the area where there's gonna be so many murals. So it's definitely gonna be where the trash is.
maybe Beer Co. then.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Was then, yeah, because her name's escaping me right now. Angie's not on the board anymore, so
Okay, maybe Fraser Beer Co.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good idea.
option.
It's
So
kind of in between.
I mean, It's not very far away from Camber. So.
That's right. It's not far.
You can look
Fraser.
at that one.
Maybe Fraser Beer Co.
Would it work for people if we looked at a Monday or Tuesday? I feel like those sometimes are the slower nights in the brewery for the versus trying to compete with like a trivia night.
Right.
Beer Co's trivia night is on Tuesdays. I think they have bingo on Thursdays. Mondays are always really dead because nobody's open. Like no food places are open on Mondays. So that would be an option to be like right after Mural Fest and all that too. So might be a good time to do it. I guess that'd be what, the 5th, 4th. So
It's just like. It just does, okay.
that's at like 7, right?
Six.
Okay. So if we did it at like 4 to
Say
6, maybe like we always like work our way towards Vicious too.
yeah, and then it would be even busier for him.
Yeah. Yeah. They might like or not because yeah, it's usually pretty crazy in there.
Nate would love that. I think he would like that. He'd like that. It's plenty of space there.
Yeah,
It's a big
yeah.
area. It's huge. It's huge.
Fraser River.
Yeah.
Right there, okay. All right, there's also, okay. So that sounds good. Bike park and other town updates, it is 11 o'clock.
Yeah, we don't really need to move through that. I had just added the bike park to the agenda because there's a petition going around town right now for a biker that died, Joel Alamo. He was admitted into the Hall of Fame for BMX. He's by far one of the most influential bikers that lived here, and he contributed so many signs and his time to Fraser that people are feeling the need to name the bike park after him, and his name Alamo, or Remember the Alamo, or something like that. I think it would just be something that we should add to an agenda at some point, or bring. I've contacted the organizers and said that they need to bring it to the town officially, but that I would go ahead and mention that it might be a possibility that they're going to do this. And I said I don't think there's the need for a petition. I think there's the need for it to actually be brought up as a discussion. So cool. With that being said,
I just know that it approved moving forward with the construction contract with Avid for up to 1.1 million. We currently have just under $1 million, we're at like 986,000. So we are putting together a sponsorship package and we'll be sending that out to local businesses. So it'd be great if you know of any businesses that may be interested. We're trying to figure out exactly what it looks like, but there will be opportunities for kind of signage and logos within the bike park for some of the participating sponsors.
we should just talk to Craig from Murdoch's area, because he would be a good overall asset to that. And I know that it's right across the road and they want to draw business back and forth. So maybe he's the owner. And he has a good vision for that whole area too. So yeah, I can make that happen. Okay. Can we make a motion to adjourn here?
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.